It's time for the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, a podcast so good it doesn't need a name. So without any further ado, here's your host, JD. Take it away, Johnny.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 57 of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, recorded live on October 10th, 2014. I'm your host, JD, aka Gaddick Teague, and today's episode will be a jam-packed one. I will be talking about the New York City Community Cantina, which I attended yesterday. A bunch of the devs were there. You'll hear in the Q&A that I recorded who was there. It was a lot of fun. I got a lot of dirt. They were far more open this year than last year, and far more open than I've heard in any of the cantinas so far. So that was an awesome opportunity to ask them a ton of questions. I have a ton of story spoilers for 3.0. Can you believe it? I will be telling you about Revan, flashpoints. I got ops names. I got ops bosses. There's going to be a character from the books coming into the game. So much stuff going on. I could talk about some PvE stuff, some PvP stuff. My question in the Community Cantina Q&A, like the open Q&A that you'll hear, was about PvP. And their answer was not the best in the world, but I will let you guys decide on that. So, without any further ado, let's get to the Q&A.
Red 2, I've got a topic coming in hot requesting clearance to engage.
Lock S foils and attack positions, you are clear to discuss.
How's everybody doing? If you can't find me, look for the really short guy standing on the balcony. That'd be me. Is Bruce up here? Bruce is on his way up. He didn't come up when I said. So, first off, I'm going to make the mic not whistle at you. Like that. There we go. I would like to officially welcome all of you to the New York Community Cantina Tour. Welcome to New York, guys. Thank you very much for having us. I just want to say before we start that we were all very excited to eat pastrami sandwiches and pizza earlier today, so thank you for having the best food on earth. Thank you very much. Alright, so let me explain a little bit about how tonight's going to work if you've never been to a cantina tour before. So I'll introduce who's standing around me in a second. When you guys came in, should I keep going down? Just keep sliding down until I don't reverb? There we go. We can do that. There we go. That sounds less reverby. No? I'm gonna aim it this way. Did you say go downstairs? Yes. Hang on. She's looking at this to see why I reverb it. Probably. Yell out your servers. Squat down like this. So yeah, so it looks like I'm in prison. Is that working? Can you see me better? It's because I'm sure I'm lower in my natural state. This actually does work. I can sit down. It looks even worse with everybody standing around me, right? It looks real bad. These pictures are going to be on the internet, aren't they? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to explain how it's going to work from down here on the ground. Andrew's intentionally trying to stay as close to me as possible, Andrew. So let me explain how it's going to work. When you walked in, you guys all got a droid code and a thumb drive. If you don't know what they are, the droid code is a pen you can only get here from one of us handing to you. We got some cat fans in the house. I appreciate that you're down here with yours, but you're too tall. You can't see down. No, that's okay. And the thumb drive has stuff on it that no one's ever seen before. I actually don't even know what's on it. I probably should have checked, but there's stuff on it that no one's ever seen before, so that's always beneficial too. Okay, so the way this event's gonna work is as soon as I introduce everybody, I'll tell you guys a little bit about how to. Let me start by introducing everybody. All the way on my right, there's no pastor, right, Courtney?
sticker to back in.
Keith's up there. Oh, let's start with Keith. That's Keith Canning. He's the Director of Live Services. He's my boss. That's Keith Canning.
Harbinger players, on to Keith Canning.
That was all Bruce. Courtney. This is Courtney Lynch from the community team. Courtney Wave. Andrew Horowitz, senior producer on Star Wars Republic. I'm here. I skipped ahead. The senior producer on Star Wars Republic, Bruce McLean. Is it better? Is it actually better underground? You do that? Yeah, that works. No. It's not gonna be there. Okay, so here's how the Q&A is gonna work. My mouth is not too close. Is my mouth too close to it? I'm not talking too loud? That's pretty frequent. Okay, this actually is working better. Good call, Courtney. Okay, so here's how the Q&A is gonna work. Usually I give all kinds of disclaimers when we do a Q&A about like, hey guys, don't ask questions where you think the answer's gonna be soon, or we're not talking about that yet. But I don't know if you noticed, we just announced that we were launching an expansion later this year. You guys see that? So I think for one of the few events we've done, I don't really have to give you guys any disclaimers, because I imagine most of your questions are gonna be about that, or this whistling that I'm doing on the mic, because I'm gonna have these microphones. So we'll do a Q&A. During the Q&A, we'll pause now and again because we'll do some trivia and give away some free stuff. You guys like free stuff? Free stuff? Actually, I want to try this because there's two levels of applause. One goes for the free stuff. Let's try that again. Free stuff? What about the fact that we're also giving you free alcohol? Free alcohol? Alcohol always wins. It wins every time. just slightly. Alright, so the way the Q&A will work is if you would be so... Oh, I didn't introduce myself. I just take it for granted. My name is Eric Musco, I'm the community manager. I figured you're all going to do that. Okay, so the way... Is it... I've been coordinating that and practicing that all day. None of you were apparently something happened on the TV. It doesn't matter. Okay, so if you have a question, please raise your hand and one of us will point to you and then you can ask your question. And I'll repeat it on the mic, so don't worry if you can't hear the question, and then we'll take a stab at answering it, alright? So if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. There.
Oh, first
You,
one.
sir. Yeah.
Well, first I was told I have to ask, who is your favorite class rep and why is it Snave?
This is a trend that's happening now over Cantina Tours, isn't it?
And the hard question is, how do you feel about the state of PvP currently, and what are you going to do to improve it in 3.0?
So the question is, how do we feel about the state of PvP, and what are we going to do to improve it in 3.0? Do you want to answer it? Do you want to answer it? Want me to answer it?
What was the first question?
The first question is...
I sound like a robot. Okay.
Tell Steve thing.
I like the state of PvP because people are playing. What do you think about the state of PvP?
Personally, I like this. I like PvP, but I get the feeling from a lot of people that there are a lot of problems. So I wanted to know how you guys saw PvP.
Sure, there's always room for improvement.
Like, what would you improve if
Or we're always refining, right? We're always refining PvP. We've been looking at PvP since we've done seasons in ranked. But what we're refining is the balance of classes, right? That's what we're really focused on. So we're always constantly doing that, and ultimately that's what PvP is. So in terms of making PvP better, I mean, I know you are probably on the forums, and I'm sure most other people here who care about PvP are also on the forums. You should tell us what you don't like about PvP, and our combat balance team is one of the best and most responsive teams I've ever worked with in terms of community feedback, in terms of implementing that into the stuff that we put out into the game updates.
Let me bounce off of what you just said. I like how did it not make any noise for you? What the hell? God. So, to Andrew's point, because I know that certainly PvP players do post a lot on the forums and tell us specifically what their concerns are. Their concerns typically tend to be one specific thing, which is queue times in ranked. A lot of people are not happy with the state of queue times in ranked, and a lot of the stuff that comes with population. We talk about that stuff a lot. I have nothing specific to say right now, but Bruce just waved at us. Andrew, what do you think? Yeah. All right. So I have nothing specific to say. He might, but I can tell you that that feedback is passed on to the team a lot. Populations in ranked and PvP is something we look at a lot. And just to reiterate something that we said before, specifically around 3.0, is that the landscape of classes in 3.0 is going to change by an awesome magnitude. Not only all the changes that are coming to each individual class, but changes that are coming to combat as a whole. So if you're a PvP player, I am myself, I'm actually very excited to see how PvP evolves once 3.0 comes out, with everything that players are going to have to play with that's new. With all the new class abilities and stuff like that.
Sorry. So, to answer your question specifically, are we happy with the state of PvP? My answer is no. There's a few things that stand out specifically for me. First of all, PvP season rewards could be better. I feel like that there's room for improvement over this last season rewards. Another area that stands out for me is class balance. There's a lot of pieces that fall into that. There's crowd control. There's a lot of pieces that tie into it, but all to Eric's point, we are blowing up a lot of things, in a good way. We have an opportunity to make changes to PvP in 3.0, and we are taking that opportunity. There's a lot of work being done by the class team on 3.0. Another thing that's not right yet with PvP is queue times. It's always a source of concern for us. Back in the day, we addressed queue times at the big server merge. We don't want to do that again. We are working on something post 3.0 to address queue times. I can't tell you what that is, unless you get a lot more beers in me, then I'll spell it all. There are some things that are going well for PvP. This year we have ranked war zones, ranked PvP, and leaderboards. That was something we wanted to have from the beginning. We're very happy with that. And with Galactic Strongholds, we didn't want to. We always think about PvP because a lot of us in the dev team play a lot of PvP. We didn't want to forget it with Galactic Strongholds, and that's why we introduced Commanders and Open World PvP. I know Open World PvP is not perfect, but it was we wanted to excite more PvP to where it had not been before.
Alright, so that was a really long answer. So all of you guys who are sitting down there looking up at me, let's all just take a minute and roll our necks so we're not causing physical injury to all of you who had to look up to that. Okay, next question.
Okay, well, I already talked to you guys outside about it for a couple of years. I understand I would love overall PvP, but you still have to address the problem with unintentionally getting yourself flagged through flag players, running into mobs just for the sole purpose of briefing players. I know we talked about it, but the thing is, we're going to talk about one thing, talk about balancing. I have to go back to another Star Wars game. Balancing is wonderful. The problem is, when you sacrifice the enjoyment of the game for everybody, you're chronically balancing the PvP. If you keep adding abilities, all of a sudden someone breaks that ability in PvP, now you're balancing it for PvP during your most game fight. As a Sage healer, my healings were nerfed because of PvP. So my question to you, or my tip to you is, let us have the options of uncheck or check off a option that we will not be involved in world PvP, but also watch carefully what you're doing, maybe having a separate skill system specifically for the PvP player. That does not affect the PvE player.
So it was less of a question and more of a statement, I would say. No, that's fine. Basically what you're saying is were saying to be careful how we're balancing to make sure that PvP changes are not affecting PvE. The interesting thing is that shoe goes on both feet. We have changes that we make for PvE that also affect PvP. As part of our game, we have to balance around both of those things. And the suggestion of maybe make separate skill sets for those things, I expect that is unlikely to happen. Although we will certainly have scenarios where abilities will have different effects. PvE or PvP, we have some of that already in the game, and I think that's the situation you might see where we would never make separate skill sets.
Short answer. I feel your pain, brother, but separate abilities for PvE and PvP.
Different abilities are used differently in PvP works just as good.
Absolutely. What it does is make our jobs very interesting.
Well, limits the time.
Okay, next question. This guy. In GSF, are we ever going to see the infiltrator ship? I will never say never. I can tell you that it's not coming in 3.0, and we obviously haven't talked about any specifics that are happening beyond that. We'll never say never, though. Red shirt. I think it's a jacket. Isn't it a jacket? A shirt. It's a shirt, I think.
Space PvE.
I like that this question was 2 words, space PvE, and I got a round of applause from the whole place. So this is one of the awesome things that we get to do sometimes when we have cantinas, is that when someone asks a question, and they're specifically asking about future content or something like that, and the entire place erupts in applause, it's usually a really good sign, because that means a lot of people want it, and we tend to look at what players really want and make it happen. Off-rail space PvP, housing.
Oh, but I don't mind paying.
We long-term try to make rooms where we can sell. Gill chips. Gill chips, yeah, I guess that, I should go with that one. That's a way better example.
And you want it with the money?
We'll do one more question, then we'll give away some free stuff.
Yeah, I wanted a what?
Courtney, pick some money.
Okay. Well, thank you.
At the bar, black shirt. Wait, which one? This one or that? That one, okay. Andrew's yelling right here. You, yeah, you. Okay, so the question, this is probably going to be for you, Andrew. The question was, yeah, I'm about to say, the question was, no, I'm about to say, don't worry. So the question was, right now, conquests are very skewed towards large guilds. Large guilds have a much better chance of winning. And the specific problem that he's bringing up is that it makes it very hard for small guilds to expand their ship at all because they're not winning conquests, correct? Do we have any plans in place to address that specific issue?
That is a correct statement. That is how we designed that feature.
So is there an alternate option later? Because that really spreads small guilds.
You want a guild ship for yourself?
What he's asking is, he's in a small guild. Right now, small guilds can't have a hard time expanding their guild ship once they purchase it because they always lose conquests to bigger guilds. Are we ever going to give them a bit easier opportunity to get the materials required to expand their flagship than there is now?
Yes. If it becomes prohibitive to be in a small guild, when you say small guild, how many people are you talking about? 2? Oh, 2 examples. Sorry. I thought you meant 2 people in a guild. No. Hang on. Before the 2 examples, how many people are in your guild?
We probably have about like 10 to 12 active.
10 to 12 active.
We have another friendly guild who has about 20 to 30 active.
Okay.
20 to 30, and they have trouble.
Okay.
So that's how much trouble we have.
Sure.
It makes it borderline impossible.
It is very difficult. That was by design. Now, we will let the data bear out how difficult it is. If there are only a couple of guilds change it. It's a very new feature, but we did do this by design to make it very difficult to get guild captains. And also to open up, unlock the pieces of the guild captainship.
Let's give away some free stuff. Free stuff? We should do someone from up here. We haven't done someone from up here yet. You? This guy, which question? Yeah, I appreciate it. Do we want to get upstairs, downstairs rivalry going on right now? Is that what's happening? Alright, we have an upstairs question. So the question was, so for those of you guys that don't know, we talked about this a little bit on the forums, and we didn't talk about it much wider than that. I know when Rise of the Hell Cartel came out, one of the things we heard from players universally was, we want more class story. And so if you don't know, in Shadow of Revan, there will be, it's only one, but there will be one class story that is unique to each individual class that you get. What does that mean? It means there's one. It means literally there's one mission that is unique to each individual class. So his question, this fine gentleman's question was, is that kind of a trend for how we're going to treat class story moving forward? And Bruce may have a specific answer, but I would bet the answer is going to be, we'll see. We always want to get as much class story as we can into the game, with the understanding that we're not going to have traditional full acts of class stories like we did before. It's very unlikely to happen. But with that in mind, we're going to try to get as much class story in as we can. And so this is a baby step to see how this works. If you guys love it, please tell us that you love it. And that might be something we'll continue to do in the future. No, let me mention that too. That's something that's relevant to story. In case you guys didn't see it, when 3.0 comes out, the Forged Alliance's flashpoints, since they are super relevant to the storyline of Revan, for Shadow of Revan, are going to be completely soloable. You will be able to play them by yourself as a single player flashpoint, so that you can get all caught up on the story before you get into Shadow of Revan.
What? Revan's alive?
I didn't say that. Okay, let's do 2 more questions and then we'll give away the last of the stuff. Andrew, make you pick. Okay.
Is it my turn? Because I picked the wrong guy.
Lady with the red hair? I heard a lady with the red hair. Question. I'm sure you guys are applauding again. That's good. Will we ever add more companion story? Is the question? Yep. So let me ask this. So what I can say is there isn't more companion story in 3.0. That is correct, right? There is not more story in 3.0. But let me ask a question. Do you guys want more companion story? Yeah! That might be free drinks. That might be free drinks. So this is one of those things where unfortunately it's not coming now. As just stated, it's definitely something we would love to do because we know of how much everybody would love to see more of it. If love to do it turns into doing it at some point, we will be sure to let you know the second that it happens because we definitely would love to do it. It's just a matter of, it's a lot of companions and a lot of time to do all of that. But yeah, certainly at some point potentially. Yeah. Let's do one more question. Let's give away the last of the free stuff. Keith, you pick.
Describe them awkwardly. You have to describe them.
Yeah, with the beard. And the one with the beard. You're the beard. Yeah, you're the beard guy.
My question is about the Korean thing. Will you ever increase the drop rate of the red sphere? Because it seems to be impossible for people to achieve. You want it? Yeah. You got it. Yeah.
Can I just say I love having Andrew at these events? He just makes dreams come true. The question was, will we ever increase the drop rate for the Rex Spears as part of the great event? Right? And Andrew said, you want it? You got it. My guess is he's making a note on his phone right now that says this. Yeah, I'm going to text our lead designer and tell him to do it. That's the beauty of being a producer.
Text our lead designer right now and tell him to increase the drop rate.
Yeah. All right. let's give away the last of the free stuff. While we're working on giving away the last of the free stuff, I know a lot of you guys have questions. Here's the beauty of it. The 5 of us are all going to be here drinking with you till 11 o'clock. Come find us and ask us whatever you want. That's what we're here for, alright? So the Q&A is basically going to continue except with alcohol, which is a better version. Yeah. Alright, let's give away the last of the free stuff.
Alright, so that was the community Q&A that was done in New York City yesterday. That will be going up separately as its own file if you'd like to download that, or it will be part of the podcast, which hopefully will be going up tomorrow or Sunday or whenever that does go up. And now for the other stuff, the stuff that was not recorded, the information that maybe was a little bit more unique. Overall, I thought the questions during the Q&A were pretty poor. The question on conquest for smaller guilds, I thought they were pretty... they responded how I thought they would to the question, which was pretty negatively, but I tend to agree with them. I think that conquest should be something where small guilds have to work really hard, or you don't get your expanded guildship. Except if you do commanders, because that is always the option. If you don't want to do any of the conquest stuff, you don't want to work hard enough to get in there, then by all means go ahead and do commanders. That can be done by anyone in a relatively okay-sized guild. Now, information. I sat down during the event for almost the entire time with Bruce McLean. It was me, Bruce McLean, and 4 members of the guild Redemption, which was pretty interesting. They had a very hardcore take. That's why some of the questions kind of skewed towards Nightmare Ops, things like that, were asked far more than I planned on. But yeah, that's what we talked about. Bruce was very happy to give me story spoilers, which was very interesting. If you don't want spoilers, I will be putting all the story stuff towards the end. Anything that could possibly be a spoiler, I know what the operations are going to be. I know some of the bosses in the operations. I know some of the stories, the flashpoints, and what the new flashpoints will be. So I'm going to push that all towards the end. We're going to talk about system level stuff, 3.0 stuff right now. And then we will get into the other stuff at the end. So, first up, the 40 NPC limit. That was what was going on when I walked up to Bruce McLean. They were already discussing the 40 NPC limit. He reiterated that it's something that's dictated by the engineers. They have engineers on staff that say 40, if we go any more, we're going to have performance issues. 40 is the hard limit, we can't do any more. So if at any point they say we can go beyond 40, they will be happy to do it. They would love to do it, but at this moment they can't. It sounds like they would like to add the, like the facsimile, I guess, companions or NPCs to go beyond that limit so that some of the NPCs or pets don't count as actual NPCs in your stronghold, but it sounds like that's in the far-flung future. Along with mannequins. It sounds like they really like the idea of mannequins. They'd love to get those in the game, but I wouldn't expect to see that for a while. Which is a little upsetting, but that's okay. On the strongholds front, Bruce also talked about, I asked Bruce if we would see a new stronghold anytime soon. He responded with a resounding yes, and he said that he would love to have a stronghold on Alderaan, but I wouldn't take that as hard fact as saying that the next stronghold will be on Alderaan. But it definitely sounds like we'll be getting a new stronghold sometime in the soon TM future, which is quite interesting. Let's see, I got a whole notebook here. Got a lot of stuff to get through. What else can we get? Some stuff about Revan, that'll come later. Let's see, the devs, they were talking about different parsing tools. They said that internally Bruce had only ever used mocks. Well, not internally, but in his personal playing, he has only ever used mocks, but seemed interested with Parsec. Parsec is the one I use. I think Parsec is far superior, in my opinion, which is nice, because I was sitting down with the guys from Redemption, and they said that one of their guildies was one of the people that coded Parsec, which is cool. It was good to talk to them about that. But yeah, so they are aware of the parsing tools. They obviously have their own internal parsing tools, but at home, Bruce has used mocks before. Let's see. Talk about faction changes. It was brought up that players would like to be able to change factions if they want to either go onto the better side, the one that they see is better, and Bruce responded with, "Are you willing to pay for it? And if you're willing to pay for it, we're willing to do it." So they said they would be willing to pay for it, and Bruce said he'll definitely be looking into it, possibly going forward. So if you've been wanting to move Empire to Republic or Republic to Empire, then you may be able to do that at some point. Bruce also said that he really wants Legacy Datacrons, and he really wants it, but if he really wanted it, and it was possible, it would be in the game right now. So something's telling me that we're not going to see Legacy Datacrons, which kind of sucks, but that's what's going on with Legacy Datacrons. So that was quite interesting. Something cool is that they are actively looking at gear being independent of stats and having some kind of costume system in the future, possibly for 3.0. If it's up to Bruce, it's going to be in 3.0. I'm going to be cynic here and say that maybe 3.1 will get it, but they are really looking into removing the stats from gear and letting you basically swap gear in and out as you see fit. You can have a costume manager similar to several other games. DCUO is the one that comes to mind for me. So you can switch out your gear at will, look however you want, whenever you want, between rounds, switch out, easy, no problem. And hopefully that will be in at 3.0, and if not, some point closely following that. And to that point, we also discussed the problem with crystals, the color crystals having plus 41 still. He was asked if that the crystals in the new content will also be plus 41, or if they will be plus 51 maybe, if they will be increased. He seemed to lean towards the fact of not having stats on crystals at all. If they're going to do some kind of gear management system where your gear stats don't matter, then we can go to a system where your color crystal really doesn't matter. So taking the stats off color crystals seems like the way they're leaning, and I would be very happy with that. It would be awesome if we can get rid of the stupid stats on color crystals. I'm sure people will be butthurt at first, because obviously the person that has the power white crystal is so much less rich, I guess, and the person who has the white endurance crystal is so much more rich, or whatever. I don't know exactly how that will work. I don't care. I want to see color crystals without any stats on them. The topic of bolster came up when Bruce was talking about it. He says that it's obviously not perfect, but he quoted Winston Churchill and said, "Bolster is like democracy. Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the other forms of government that haven't worked out." So, I think that's actually a pretty good quote to sum up my feelings on bolster. But on the bolster front, he also talked about, I asked him about what Damien said was his baby idea, his favorite idea was some kind of sidekick system. I asked Bruce about it. He seemed to have never heard about something like that. He's obviously played City of Heroes and other games that have a system. but he had never heard about it in SWTOR, so obviously it's not being worked on right now. He said it's interesting, but he doesn't think Bolster is set up right now to do something like that. Bolster isn't set up to down-level you, it's set up to up-level you. So that would obviously be a problem with that system. I think that's a little cop-out. Make it work. Get it in there. Because that would be cool. Yes, so the sidekick system is not in the current plans. There will also not be a stat squish in 3.0. And to his knowledge, there will be no changing of soft caps or anything like that. It's pretty much going to stay the same as far as Bruce understood. He also said that once they get more players into the closed beta, which is going on right now, they'll be able to test that more, and obviously as it goes live, they will reserve the right to change stats as they see fit. So if they want to come in and take, power or crit down or alacrity down, they boost alacrity too high up, they reserve the right to nerf that back down whenever they feel like. So as far as he knows, no changes at the moment, but there could be changes to stats going forward. He says when SWTOR is a game as old as WoW, then they'll worry about stat squishing. But until then, you can enjoy your very high HP and damage. Let's see. They are internally talking about adding in a new difficulty to EC, and then EV and KP came up as well. But EC especially, they are talking about bringing up to max level and making that a max level operation again. I don't know if it's going to happen. It didn't sound like that was their plan for the next operation, to be EC again. That would bring Kephis back. There was lots of Kephis talk, let me tell you. Kephis came up about every 2 sentences. They're going to make... This is... Okay, I'm gonna go spoiler right now. Bruce said... He said to write down big spoilers in my notepad when I wrote this down. That, at the end of the last operation, Revan... You kill Revan in the last operation. He takes off his mask and it's Kephis. I know that's pretty much a meme at this point, but Bruce made the joke, so I thought it was something I should tell you. Also, there was a great idea for an April Fool's joke that I'm not going to say, because I really hope that he takes it to heart. I think he wrote it down on his phone, this April Fool's joke that one of the other guys came up with. It was hysterical. So, hopefully that comes in. So that's EC. On the PvP front, he said that he alluded to in the Q&A something to fix queue times, because they highlighted that as a major issue with PvP. And I somewhat agree with him. I think that queue times are a big problem with PvP, not necessarily the only problem as they seem to think. But he said that they have engineers working on something to reduce queue times, and when I asked him if that was cross-server PvP, he said no. It is way better than cross-server PvP. I have no fucking clue what he could possibly be talking about, but they are not working on cross-server queues. They're working on something way better. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. The question was brought up in the chat about mega servers. No, it sounds like they don't want to do server mergers again, so maybe they're doing some kind of sharded mega server. That could be a possibility. I don't know. But going to PvE, the devs, internally, they do beat most of the Nightmare content themselves in-house. They can do that. There are certain bosses that the devs do not complete. It was a little confusing. It sounded like he meant the designers themselves complete all the content, but some of the devs themselves can't internally, but they do take in something like... They take in like... guilds, awesome guilds. They bring in awesome guilds, he said. Not guilds completely, but awesome players they do bring in to test content. And then he also said that they bring in something like devs from other games or testers from players from other... I don't know. Something about players from other games or devs from other games they bring in to help test their Nightmare content. So they do make sure that all their content is beatable before it releases. They do beat all their content. But he said that they cannot account for any last-minute tweaks. This is probably alluding to the Dread guards, how they were tweaked up last minute, and they probably didn't beat those in-house. So, yeah, that's how they test their Nightmare content. I think that's kind of what we assumed, but if you think that they are just not good enough to defeat their own content. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. I don't know. Geir is good. Once again, just like the last expansion, if you have the Dreadmaster gear, the top level Nightmare Mode gear, that will be the entry level of gear required to go into the next operation. So the first operation for Shadow of Revan, which I know the name, I'll talk about that later, is the gear you need to get in there is the top level raid gear. This one is for SWTOR Miner. I challenge you, SWTOR Miner, right here, to figure out what the iSanity system that they just implemented does, and you gotta break it somehow. I was told not to write down what it does, and I don't remember what he said it does, but it does something, and it makes their jobs really easy somehow. So, SWTOR Miner, if you're in the chat, figure this out. So I asked them about the PvP the player-made war zones that I had discussed when Strongholds came out, where my idea was players could flag their Strongholds a PvP zone, and then make your own special war zone, basically. You can have your own community-driven war zones, which would be awesome. And he said that initially they had that in there, that Strongholds, when they started, you were able to flag it PvP and have an all-out war if you want, or do whatever the hell you want in your Stronghold, but for performance reasons, the engineers were like, no, we can't do that. So that's probably not going to happen, which is kind of sucky. They are also working on getting in your combat dummies, so you can do some kind of combat in there, and mannequins, which I discussed already. I asked them about the engine, and if Bruce felt that the engine was prohibitive in preventing the devs from doing what they want and making some kind of large-scale world PvP like Ilum again, something that I'm sure a lot of players would enjoy. And he said that he has a lot of knowledge of other games. He worked in, I think he said he worked on Warhammer Online, and he said something like relic raids or sieges, probably never going to happen. The engineers are always working on improving performance, but he said that something on that scale just isn't going to happen. But he said that the engineers are constantly improving the game, and that something like a large-scale world PvP thing could happen on more of a conquest scale or a smaller scale. So we're not talking like 40 on 40, we're talking like 8 on 8. He also said, when I mentioned that in 16-man raids, sometimes it's even hard to deal with lots of AoE going on in a 16-man raid, and he said yes, that's something they're aware of and they're working on it. So yeah, he also said that the engineers are constantly putting in improvements that players may notice, that every once in a while when an update goes live, there'll be a graphical improvement that they don't put in the notes because the engineers are afraid if they put it in the notes, well then players who don't see the improvement, well this works only on Core i7s with this kind of whatever, but it really improves it for them. He doesn't want to put that in the notes and then have all players expect a massive improvement of the game. So if you notice the graphics are improving, it's not just your eyes, not just in your head. The graphics may actually be improving. I asked him about pod racing. I know a while ago SWTOR Miner mined some stuff that was possibly related to some kind of pod racing system. He said that at some point they did have a prototype for pod racing, and it just didn't work because of server lag, which is a sucky thing because I would love to see pod racing, but pod racing won't happen because it looks like person A wins, but actually because of server lag, person B wins, and then person C, whatever. That's why we won't see pod racing, which makes me sad. And then the other, I guess the last thing on my list here before I go into spoiler territory is that the gambling event was born of something very funny. When they decided to delay Strongholds, when they realized, well, if we just release Strongholds and then release Conquests and stuff later, it's kind of half-baked, players won't get it all, so let's do the right thing and delay Strongholds. they decided that they needed something for June. They pushed or July. Was it July? I think it was July. They needed to do something in July, or players would complain. Players complain anyway. But they needed to do something. So, almost over a weekend, somebody, he didn't say who, or some group of people, just whipped up slot machines. They were like, we can do slot machines, slot machines. And then they gave us the casino event. That's how it happened. So when it was lacking in something like Pazak or Sabak, that was why. Because the slot machines were just something easy that the devs thought they could do, they accomplished it, and they gave us the event. He didn't really comment on if we would see Sabak or Pazak in the future, but I'm hoping that we do. I think I heard him say that at some point in development they had the game in there, but they took it out for some reason, but that I may have just been hearing things at that point. That was towards the end of the night. So I think that's it. No world boss. There will be no world boss in Shadow of Revan at launch in 3.0, but at some point in the future we will be seeing one, probably in 3.0. A lot of stuff he said next year, so I'm assuming 3.1, 3.2 type time frames. Let's see. Oh, I guess this is probably the big thing to talk about. The expansion news delay. I asked Bruce how he felt about that and why they had to delay the announcement of Shadow of Revan, even though there seemed to be so much stuff going on. Some people speculated that it might be the 12 times XP. I asked him about that, and Bruce said, I fucked up. I just straight fucked up. The launch video that they were going to put out in September was absolute shit. He said, actually, to quote him, he said, the video was ass. It was ass. So, they rushed it, and I guess there was they just assumed the video would be there. It wasn't. And the video sucked, so he made the decision. He was flipping the fuck out, as he said, and he was crushed over the weekend. He came in on Monday when they had to release it by Tuesday to be within their time frame. I believe that would have been within September. And he was like, we can't do this. We need to make this better. We need to make the video better. We're pushing this off. I'm taking the heat. That's it. So that's why it was delayed. He said that they were still testing the 12 times XP, but they would have been able to get that in the game when they released everything. So that wasn't the reason for the delay. The reason for the delay was that the video just totally sucked. He also said that while he was not directly responsible for the email that went out to some members of the press, the 150 character titled email, all caps, that was kind of mocked a little bit on Twitter, said he was not responsible for that, but he does take responsibility because in the end it is his job to do things like that, so it was his fault for that as well. So yeah, that was the delay of the expansion. Last for my notes. When asked about flying mounts, Bruce said that he doubts we will ever see flying mounts. When talking about the 12 times XP, multiple people asked if we could see something like story mode SWTOR or something like that on the cartel market where you can purchase the 12 times XP at some point in the future. He said that right now 12 times XP is a giant experiment. They want to see how players respond to it, how they level up to it, what they like, what they don't like. They want to see if players play more now that they have 12 times XP, or maybe play less, they level up their characters and get the hell out. So he said that's a grand experiment that they're testing out. They want to see how players respond to it, and they will decide what they do with it at some point after that. When asked if 12 times XP hurts the game, he says he really doesn't know, and he went back to the experiment thing. He says that it is important for players to level up, so he likes that the 12 times experience forces you to go through the leveling experience while accelerated, instead of just buying a max level character like you can in WoW. And there was discussion about, warriors end up buying a level 50. You buy a level 50 warrior, and all of a sudden you're using 2 daggers and trying to tank, and you don't really get what's going on with your class. So he thinks that it's important to keep players leveling up through the game, but that 12 times experience may be on the cartel market, and he doesn't know if it's hurting the game. When asked if we will see set bonuses in flashpoints again, at some point early on in the game you can get some set pieces in flashpoints, he said that the reason they don't put the set bonuses in flashpoints anymore is because they want to incentivize the group finder. They want the group finder to feel special. They want you to get in and do offs instead of flashpoints. So their way of doing that, or one way of them doing that, is to add the set pieces only in operations, so you have to get in there and actually do some operations to get your set bonuses. And that's it. That is it for non-spoiler territory. Alright, so if you don't want to be spoiled, thanks for listening. You can skip ahead to the end. If you do want to be spoiled, well, I'm going to give the people who don't want to be spoiled a couple seconds here while I drink some, and we will talk about story and Revan. Oh, I guess there's one other thing that, whatever, if people locked out, that's fine. Nightmare mode flashpoints. Well, Bruce said that he had never heard of the idea of nightmare mode flashpoints, which I find kind of preposterous, seeing as that kind of gets bandied about all the time. But he says it's possibly a cool idea. He said that leaderboards for something like that, he doesn't like the idea of that because what happens with leaderboards is they get exploited. And while in PvP it's easy to figure out who's exploiting the system and ban those players, which is questionable in and of itself if that even happens, well, in Nightmare Mode Flashpoints it would be incredibly hard to tell who is actually cheating and who's just doing it better. And spoiler time. So, what do we want to talk about first? We want to talk about why Revan is a dick. Got anything in the chat? You want me to talk about the new race? You want me to talk about what the new operation is? We could talk about... Alright, let's talk about why Revan is dick. So, Bruce was asked, why do both sides hate Revan? That doesn't really make sense. Shouldn't one side be allying with Revan and one side be against Revan? Or shouldn't one side be trying to gain favor with Revan? Well, apparently both sides hate Revan because a certain character who died at the end of the Jedi Knight story, the Emperor, well, while he may have been killed in body, let me get this here. The Emperor, he's been killed, but has not been destroyed. Revan wants to resurrect him, and he has a doomsday device that he will use to bring him back. And this was also marked with big spoilers at Bruce's request. So that is your hook into the whole 3.0 storyline. The Emperor is dead, Revan's trying to bring him back, and he has a giant doomsday device that could destroy the entire galaxy, bringing him back. And then once the Emperor is back, everyone's fucked, obviously. So, that's why both sides hate him and have to join forces to get rid of him. Now, one of the things that you will be doing to do this is you'll be going into 2 operations, both themed around Revan. And Revan will be the final boss of the second Flashpoint. So what the first set of operations released in Shadow of Revan will have Revan himself as a boss. He will be the last boss. They're splitting it up like DP and DF. It sounds like it will be 5 and 5 again, 5 bosses and 5 bosses. He said that he doesn't know if there will be a puzzle boss, but he thinks that it's pretty likely that we'll see another puzzle boss like we did in the earlier operations. And that there is a mechanic in the Revan fight where he has the Doomsday device up and going, and he pulls you into it, and it's a one-shot kill. So, I don't know if that helps the World First guys out there clear it, but that's what he will do. The first operation is called the Ravager, and this is one of the things that I hinted out on the post I did yesterday. The Ravager is a giant space station in which players have to invade to steal a tank thing or some kind of starship. I don't know exactly what it was, but you need to steal it from this neutral group of people and then use it to infiltrate the Revanite ship. I have been told on Twitter that the Ravager was actually the ship flown by someone in KOTOR 2. I don't remember exactly who it was because I didn't play KOTOR 2, but apparently that has some kind of significance. So if that matters to you, yeah. Let's talk flashpoints. Flashpoints. There are going to be 6 flashpoints, 4 hard modes, and 2 tacticals. The 4 hard modes will be hard mode versions of the Forged Alliance's storyline. So you have Tython Korriban, you have Manon, and then you have Rakata Prime. Those will be upped into hard mode, and that will be your 4 hard modes if you want to do flashpoints. Then on the other side, the 2 new tactical flashpoints will be completely new. We have never seen these before. One of them involves a character from one of the books. I believe it was Deceived when I looked it up on Wikipedia. So in this flashpoint, which is called... The flashpoint called the Torch? The flashpoint is called Blood Hunt, and it takes place on Rishi, where you have to fight the Revanites. Lana is there, Jakairo is there, so people you know are there. So you need to, in order to fight the Revanites, you are trying to get the Mandalorian Torch, who is known as Torch, to recruit her to your side so she can help you fight the Revanites. So it ends in a giant trial arena where you have to fight different combatants that the Torch sends at you. And then when you finally defeat them all, she drops down and says, well, I'm going to teach everyone and show them what's going on. And she turns out to be Shay Vizsla from the Deceived books. So if you've been keeping up with the lore of the books outside of the game, you may know her. I don't know exactly what she does, but it's Shay Vizsla. You end up fighting her. I don't know how that ends. He didn't say how that ends. So that will be one of the flashpoints. They also discussed that Revan, while he will be an operations boss, they're doing something similar to WoW did with the Lich King, in that you can defeat him in both an operation and a flashpoint. So if you do it in the flashpoint version, this is probably the other flashpoint, you will be aided by members of the SWTOR Pantheon. You know, Jakairo will be there, Lana will be there, and Shan, whatever, Theron Shan will be there. All those guys will be there, helping you fight Revan, basically. So they will be your ops group, so you can defeat it in a flashpoint if you don't necessarily want to do the operations. So that I actually think is a good idea. I think it was a good idea when WoW did it, and I think it's a good idea here. We will certainly see Kefis again. I think that was facetious, but I wrote it down, so there you go. The class missions in the story in general are not continuations of your Chapter 3 class missions, so if anyone was thinking about that, that's not going to happen. Bruce actually said that he does not know if Malgus is actually dead. He'd have to talk to the writers. He has no idea story-wise if they will be bringing Malgus back. One thing he did say is the Shroud is definitely not in the expansion. Well, maybe in further parts of the expansion, but in 3.0, we will see no more Shroud missions. We won't see the Shroud in any way, which I think is kind of weird. I kind of like the Shroud, but he's not coming back. Let's talk about The last year at the Community Cantina, when I spoke to Damien, he talked about the new race that was in the works. It was somewhere between Cathar and Twi'lek and alienness. Well, it turns out the new race will be Togruta. Probably not in 3.0. It sounds like it'll be a 3.1 deal, just like Cathar were 2.1. So we'll be getting a new race. It'll be Togruta when it happens. That's anyone's guess. In the storyline, you go from Rishi to Yavin 4. If anyone couldn't guess that, that's just how the story is going to end up. You go to Rishi first, and then you go to Yavin 4. Also, the 2 new flashpoints, so there's 2 tacticals, will be leveling up flashpoints, so you can do them from 55 to 60 if you prefer to level that way, which is something. Up. The flashpoint where you get to fight Revan, he said, is somehow locked behind a rep grind. So if you want to fight Revan, and maybe it's you fight Revan by yourself, I don't remember, I didn't write this down specifically, and maybe that it's a solo mission that you need to do a rep grind to get to, so probably through the 2 flashpoints as a rep, and then once you get enough rep, you can go ahead and fight Revan with your allies, so that will be what you have to do. Talked about the Blood Hunt with the Mandalorian Torch today. Again, I wrote down this the 3rd time I have it written down. You will almost certainly kill Kefis again. So, Kefis is cool. The PvP team is walking. What am I talking about? I hope they can walk. The PvP team is working fully on revamping classes right now. That's why there aren't any real PvP updates to speak of in terms of maps in the 3.0 release. But he did say that they are actively talking about a new Warzone, and we will see a Warzone at some point next year. A new Warzone, new game type. I asked him if it was going to be Hotball. He said they haven't even decided the game type yet. So that might take some time, but PvPers out there, I guess you'll get something eventually. For some reason, I felt the need to write down Musco Man Randy Savage. I feel like that's a name I should use to call Musco now. From now on, he'll be known by me as Musco Man Randy Savage. I asked the team about revitalizing GSF. He said that their phase 1 to revitalize GSF was to increase the shipwreck. They've talked about that. So maybe that'll help revitalize GSF. He said that is only phase 1 though, but phase 2 and phase 3 and future phases may not necessarily be new ships or new modes. So that's kind of sad. They'll still kind of be the ugly stepchild. A couple people on Twitter asked me a few quick things to ask him. Mute companions. He said he liked the idea, but is not in the plans. So probably won't be getting that. Loop Music. He said that they just actually got a new music producer. He said that Loop Music is not in the plans also, but that it's something he'll bring up to the new music producer. So that's something, I guess. Gold keys for guild ships. Someone asked about that. He said they had an intense debate many months ago when they were first working out the guild ship system, where how much freedom do you give guilds to let players do whatever. He said it may be time to actually implement this so certain guildies don't have to wake up at 8 in the morning or 5 in the morning, depending on where they live, just so they can invade a whatever on time. He said that strongholds were rushed and certain things were left on the cutting room floor, but they will be slowly adding them back in as soon as possible. And I think that actually does it. Yes. And the other thing is that Snave is the developer's favorite class rep. That is undisputed. No one can say otherwise. The devs love Snave. That is all. And that'll about do it for this week's show. And I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed the live recording and all of the plethora of information that we've received from the devs. I want to talk about Extra Life. So in a couple weeks, I will be doing the 24-hour Extra Life stream. I'll be putting a donation link in the show notes, so check that out. You need to donate me some money, so no, you're not donating me money, you're donating money to the kids, so help kids out and make me feel better. That's what you're really doing. You're making me feel better about myself by donating to the children, so everyone wins there. And I'll be playing 24 hours of games. I actually have this thing right here will be one of the giveaways, so I highly suggest you donate. Donations will probably be required to win that, so if you want to win that, donate some amount of money. Also, there will be other giveaways. I'll be playing some SWTOR. I have some game codes for other games that I'll be playing. I know Civ Beyond Earth actually comes out the day before, so that makes it a great time to do that. So I'll be playing some of that, so check out the extra live stream, link in the show notes below. As always, if you'd like to contact me, you can send your questions, comments, concerns to gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com, or you can tweet them to @gteague, that's GTEEG on Twitter. So you make sure to subscribe on iTunes to get your weekly podcast updates. And if you're new to the game or thinking of resubscribing, I provided my Refer a Friend link in the show notes, so if you'd like a little added incentive to come back, feel free to use it. You can also check out my website, gaddockgaming.com, where I post the podcast. I have the pictures from the flash drive up there. I have other stuff going on, some general gaming blogs that I feel like putting up there. They're up there. So go ahead and check out gaddockgaming.com. And with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. This is JD, signing off. If I can find my sign-off music somewhere. Here it is.